Welcome to Agri-Pulse Newsmakers, where we aim to take you to the heart of ag policy. I'm your host, Lydia Johnson. This week, we'll speak with Meat Institute President and CEO Juliana Potts about how the MAHA movement is influencing protein demand and about new lawmaker pressure to address consolidation in the meatpacking sector. But first, here are this week's headlines. After a lengthy debate spanning nearly 24 hours, the House Ag Committee advanced a farm bill in the wee overnight hours Thursday. The committee approved the Republican-introduced legislation 3417 after rejecting a Democratic alternative that included about $18 billion in farm assistance while delaying funding cuts to states administering the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. 7 Democrats jumped across the aisle to support the GOP-introduced bill, including Jim Costa of California, Sharice Davids of Kansas, Don Davis of North Carolina, Adam Gray of California, Kristen McDonald-Rivet of Michigan, Josh Riley of New York, and Gabe Vasquez of New Mexico. In the higher chamber, Senate Ag Committee Chairman John Bozeman told Agri-Pulse that his committee will take up a farm bill in the coming months. Senator John Hoeven confirmed the Senate's farm bill will likely align closely with the House GOP version, but could also feature language to authorize year-round sales of E15. It's not clear if the bill can pass the full House or Senate, but if passed into law, it would authorize programs that couldn't be included in the GOP's One Big Beautiful Bill Act in 2025, which put more money into commodity programs, crop insurance, and foreign market promotion, while slashing nutrition assistance. Congress hasn't passed a full farm bill since 2018. Shockwaves have been rippling through ag supply chains following the U.S. attack on Iran. Around 45% of global urea is produced in sites in and around the Strait of Hormuz, sparking concern that fertilizer prices could spike. StoneX's Josh Linville says that the timing couldn't be worse. The phosphate market is already suffering from the lack of Chinese exports, and the nitrogen market is ramping up for spring need shipments with several supply chain issues already in place. The market is already responding with prices trading up sharply. The Strait is one of the most important bodies of water in the world. If it shuts down, the world will see an even bigger impact to oil, gas, and energy prices. The Meat Institute co-hosted the annual meat conference this week. We sat down with the group's president and CEO, Juliana Potts, to hear more about the conference and her outlook for meat demand this year.
Annual meat conference is something we do every year and have what we call the Power of Meat research that has been done for, I believe this was the 22nd year, maybe 21st, but a consumer demand up to the minute on current trends kind of a research report, and that was unveiled on Monday, and I'm proud to say that 98.3% of households buy meat when they go to meat and poultry and when they go to the grocery store. I mean, that's incredible, and demand is up. I think you've heard the term meat is having a moment, or protein is having a moment. And as we saw and have seen this week with Secretary Kennedy from HHS coming to our meeting and other things that are happening in the Trump administration on promoting meat, putting it back at the top of the upside down pyramid, having animal protein and specifically meat and poultry in diets, especially for children, is so important. So we've got really strong demand, and we've got a new look at research on protein and saturated fats and their nutritional benefits that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss to talk about consumer demand without mentioning weight loss drugs, GLP-1s.
Oh, yes.
You know, how do you see those playing as well as we look to the future?
I think it's incredibly important for people who are eating, fewer calories as a result of being on GLP-1s. It's not just me, but doctors, healthcare providers, and those that are prescribing GLP-1s. There is no more nutrient-dense food than real animal protein, and so we're just excited that it's not. Not everybody is on a GLP-1, but as something that is really changing the health of people with chronic disease to be on these drugs, really having doctors and healthcare providers and dietitians recommend a animal protein heavy diet because it is so satiating, because it gives you so much bang for the buck.
Yeah, and there still seems to be somewhat of a contradiction with the government's advice. They encourage meat consumption, but have kept the 10% limit on saturated fat. So, how is that going to impact the messaging to consumers, and how are these guidelines ultimately going to get implemented in schools and elsewhere?
Well, I think that the 10% saturated fat limit was highly debated and highly controversial in the outcome, in the results of the dietary guidelines for those who oppose lifting it. I think in the regulations that follow, there will be an opportunity to encourage additional consumption in line with what the other parts of the dietary guidelines say. So that we'll see that probably first in school meals. We think that will be forthcoming here very, very soon.
We'll be back with more Newsmakers right after this.
As a cooperative, our customers are our owners. They share our profits and help guide our business. We're not just another lender. We're Farm Credit, and we're here for you.
I think some of sustainability to farmers just comes second nature. If you asked a farmer, are you sustainable? They'd probably look at you maybe a little funny and say, I don't think I'm doing anything that special, but it really is just what they do. We're all farmers, and our goal is taking the best care of our land, our cattle, our natural resources.
This is my sustainability story.
Welcome back. High beef prices have been a bipartisan concern, and Democratic lawmakers are releasing legislation to break up large meat processors. We asked Juliana Potts, the president and CEO of the Meat Institute, if that measure could actually bring down grocery prices.
No. The proposal ostensibly is about affordability. But one of the reasons that meat and poultry have been so affordable for consumers for so long is because there's so much efficiency in the system as it exists today. There are some larger players, but there are also lots and lots of medium-sized and smaller players. We represent them all. We want all of them to be successful. And while the focus has a lot been on beef, the beef processors, those packers that have beef in their portfolio, as well as those that only process beef, they've been losing money for quarter after quarter. And that's due to a smaller than usual cattle herd in the country. You probably have heard it's the smallest it's been in 75 years. So you have a small herd coupled with high demand, and it really has not changed. It's going up. Even though it is more expensive, people are still willing to pay for it. And so when you have those fundamentals of supply and demand, you have higher prices. And what's being proposed here to break up packers and force the ones that have multiple species to pick one, you wouldn't do that to any other industry. You wouldn't tell an airline it could only fly certain places, or a car company it could only manufacture trucks and it would have to sell off other parts of its business. It's highly disruptive. It will not bring down prices. It will add cost to the system, which is exactly what they don't want to do. So it makes no sense to me why this is proposed, and why now, when cattlemen and cattle feeders are getting paid a lot for their animals. It just does not make logical sense.
Yeah, cattle sector is really one of the few bright spots in the farm economy, but just make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're saying that the market power of these processors and the packers really has no bearing on what consumers pay at the grocery store.
It really doesn't. Not right now. I mean, they are absorbing losses. They are absorbing losses this week, $350 a head. So they're not making money. And this, I'm just talking about beef right now. whether you have multiple species that you process, like poultry and pork as well, or you just process beef, everyone is losing money right now.
And you mentioned just the amount when we were talking about beef packing in particular. How much processors are losing per head? I think you said over $300 per head was your estimate, but is
This week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is the government doing enough to increase cattle and beef supplies? I mean, beef is one of the very few bright spots in the farm economy, and producers, I was at CattleCon a few weeks ago, say we do not want government intervention.
Oh, that is great, because we don't believe that there should be any government intervention. We agree on that. Producers are making great money, and that is wonderful. I am so, I'm thrilled that this is a bright spot, because there's so much of the farm economy that is, the cost of production is just, overwhelming. And there's real pain out there. But at least in cattle country, it is, they're getting paid well. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's not a secret that the cattle herd is smaller because there was drought, because coming out of COVID, there were a lot of volatility in prices. And so it's not a surprise. No one is blaming producers for having a small herd. But I think to get to a place where we have enough and we're starting to look at balance so that consumers aren't bearing more of the cost, we have to incentivize growing the herd. And then maybe that's retaining heifers. And those incentives have to be discussed, I think, as policy, but it's not a sledgehammer. It's not a sledgehammer approach either by the administration or by Congress. It has to be a surgical approach. The producers really have to be the ones to provide the policy suggestions for how do we do this.
We'll be back with more Newsmakers, but first, Andrew Huneke looks at the ag trade deficit in this week's Ag by the Numbers.
USDA is forecasting the U.S. ag trade deficit will fall by more than $14 billion. This chart shows the country's ag trade numbers since 2020. There's been a deficit since the middle of 2022. The most recent projection has the deficit at $29 billion, which would be the first time the deficit has been under $30 billion since 2023. It is important to note that all of the reduction in the deficit from fiscal year 2025 comes from reduced imports, not higher exports. For Agri-Pulse, I'm Andrew Huneke.
I've worked at Coca-Cola for 21 years.
We're delivering Dr. Pepper from our branded facility in Dallas, Texas.
We're really proud to still make Pepsi products in America.
You don't need a college degree to work here, but I put 4 kids through college by working here.
This is a great place to work with great people and great American brands.
Grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants, they all depend on us.
We deliver great paying jobs.
We deliver beverages people love.
We deliver for our community.
For 35 years, soybean farmers have invested together to build demand for U.S. soy at home and around the world. Through the soy checkoff, farmers turn every dollar into stronger markets for U.S. soybeans, driving innovation and partnerships across feed, food, fuel, sustainable production, and beyond, led by farmers and built to last. U.S. Soy, 35 years of delivering value back to the farm and investing in the future of agriculture.
Welcome back. Pressures of the farm economy were a big topic of conversation during the Farm Bill markup this week. Farm bankruptcies, rising input costs, and high interest rates. We're joined by Seth Meyer, director of the University of Missouri's Food and Agricultural Policy Research Institute, and Brett Gibbs with Bloomberg Intelligence on our panel this week. To begin the conversation, I asked Seth about his outlook on the farm economy right now.
Yeah, I think my view right now is indeed we are in very tight margins. I think the crop side, you have to take the farm economy as a whole, and when you separate out livestock from crops, clearly crop sector's having a lot of challenges. And not only that, we go through these cycles where we have a boom in prices and input prices rise with them. We have a correction, but this time I've been a bit surprised at how quickly margins narrowed in, say, 2023, how persistent it's been, and how stubbornly high those input prices have remained.
And on those input prices in particular, Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins said just last week the input prices are coming down. She cited the department's latest forecast for 2026. I'm curious, do you think that that's really an accurate picture of what's going on in the market right now?
Well, so I think some of the challenges is when the secretary talked about it, she talked about it explicitly in real dollar terms. We're going to get into the economic terms here pretty quick. I think that what producers may not expect to see is actual nominal dollars, what they pay, have much of a decline. I think that that's a real challenge. And I think it's a real challenge when we don't see much of they are also not forecasting much improvement on the crop side for returns either.
And Brett, I'd like to bring you into the conversation with all the pressures on the farm economy right now. Lawmakers are continuing to push for strong biofuel policy to drive demand. What are you expecting from the new usage mandates or renewable volume obligations that the EPA is expected to release soon?
We expect this to be one of the most robust biomass-based diesel mandates to date. We're now almost 9 months past the proposal. That's nothing new for this industry. We've become very accustomed to EPA and other policy folks, coming forth with mandates very much delayed. But I think finally, as an industry, there's a consensus around the volumes. There have been a lot of different components of, aside from the volumes, where there are going to be changes to the mandate that would directly incentivize domestic inputs, which was a primary focus across ag. It appears that that is going to be out of the proposal. However, the strong volumes alone will be supportive to the bio producers' margin, require a lot of feedstock. And when you layer that in with the tax credit changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we see it very constructive for ag. And you can see that evidenced in the soybean oil rise year to date. The corn and ethanol story is a little bit different on E15, but from an RVO perspective alone, we expect that to be very constructive.
Yeah, and these RVOs are already long overdue. I mean, what does this uncertainty and the delay of those do to markets?
Yeah, it's really, really tough, especially from particularly a biodiesel producer. They're a little bit smaller, whether it's integrated with a soy crush facility, and they don't have the big financial backing of these large refiners that have entered the renewable diesel space. So you're seeing the impacts more acutely on biodiesel. And even still now, the market has moved, meaning the credit price for RINs, the primary economic or financial instrument that determines the incentive structure of these mandates, it's gone up 50% or so year to date, even without the final mandates out. The thing is, why we're moving now is because of that lag effect. Biodiesel probably will need, 2 to 3 months where you need to purchase the proper feedstock. Some of these facilities let go of talent. You really need to get your ducks in a row here to actually meet the mandate that, again, we're probably going to get at the end of the month. So that would be 3 months into the year, and you're going to have to try and meet an annual target in really 9 months now.
We'll be back with more Newsmakers right after this.
I've worked at Coca-Cola for 21 years.
We're delivering Dr. Pepper from our brand new facility in Dallas, Texas.
We're really proud to still make Pepsi products in America.
You don't need a college degree to work here, but I put 4 kids through college by working here.
This is a great place to work with great people and great American brands.
Grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants, they all depend on us.
We deliver great paying jobs.
We deliver beverages people love.
We deliver for our community.
America never stops. Thanks to the financial support of Farm Credit, neither do the farmers and ranchers who call her home. Since the beginning, we've been helping rural America show the world what hard work can achieve. But the job is far from over. And as rural America grows further, we'll be there.
Welcome back. Farm state lawmakers are pushing for strong biofuel policy, and the Environmental Protection Agency is set to release new usage mandates or renewable volume obligations that could support agriculture. We asked Seth Meyer what he expects to see in the RVOs.
I think when the original preliminary rule was announced, it was very aggressive, right? Very aggressive. And so I think a lot of the discussion in the news, a lot of the discussion has been, how much will they pull back? And I think even if they pull back some parts of it where the half RINs are out, and they pull back with maybe some adjustments on the overall volumes, or there's some notation about whether they put small refinery exemptions and they fully reallocate or they don't, it was an incredibly aggressive RVO to begin with. And so I think as you think about that, I think it is supportive for especially the biodiesel sector. But you also have E15 as one of the horses being traded here, and you have 45Z tax credits, which certainly seem to support biodiesel more than some other commodities as well.
Yeah, and Seth, as we see this conflict in the Middle East heating up as well, I mean, there's concern about energy prices driving up. Do you think that this gives the administration, some more pressure to finalize higher RVOs and E15 as well?
Well, no, and it's an interesting problem right now. I think I think more directly it goes back to our original discussion about input prices in the short run as well. I mean, we've got a part of the world where a lot of natural gas is being produced, a lot of either primary or feedstocks for production of nitrogen fertilizers, et cetera. So I think the more immediate question is what does it do for input prices for our producers? And then secondarily, diesel prices and rising oil prices obviously should reduce RIN prices. But as we were just talking about, they're nearly $1.50 a RIN for the biodiesel ones.
Yeah, and Brett, as we see this conflict in the Middle East continue on, what will you be watching? What should farmers be watching through this conflict? Seth mentioned those input costs.
Yeah, so something that my broader team is focused on. So we cover the entirety of the ag landscape, and my colleague on the fertilizer side, obviously that has been a primary focus as you started the show on input costs that we're watching. And then inevitably the fuel price discussion. And so there's kind of a weird dichotomy here where higher fuel prices really empowers, lobbyists to say, hey, look, we have a solution here in E15 to reduce gasoline prices. Maybe that helps accelerate things, or additionally get the summertime waivers or emergency waivers or things like that. Actually, on the RVO side, there has been, within the past couple of days, a lot of questions circulating in the marketplace of, does this make, the combination of a very strong RVO and potentially a higher gasoline and just oil prices in general, does that have any impact of the administration taking a look at this one more time while it is in the final stages? I don't think so. I think the RVO itself is very much done. We're in a formality stage here. We expect it to probably be out next week. So not really too much on the Iran piece for RVOs, but I do think as we see whether or not Hormuz is going to see regular passage and what fuel prices do really into April or beyond, that might empower some of the E15 push, which we're looking at.
We'll be back with more Newsmakers, but first, Andrew Honecke looks at food insecurity in the U.S. and this week's Map It Out.
USDA's final survey on the country's food security shows that an average of 13.3% of households were food insecure in 2024. This map shows food insecurity across the country. According to the Economic Research Service, a household is food insecure if someone wasn't able to eat as much food as usual due to limited money or other resources. The report covers a 3-year span from 2022 to 2024. You can see 6 states, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi have food insecurity rates higher than the national average. 16 states and the District of Columbia have food insecurity rates that are lower than the national average. For Agri-Pulse, I'm Andrew Honecke.
Don't miss the must-attend Ag Policy event of the year. Register now for the 2026 Agri-Pulse Ag and Food Policy Summit. Hear directly from the leaders shaping the future of agriculture as they explore innovative ideas to strengthen rural economies and guide policy decisions for the year ahead and beyond. The summit takes place March 23rd at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., with a virtual option available. View the agenda and register today at agripulse.com under the Events tab.
I was kind of known as the sheep guy around here. The fire went from north to south and it blew that way and it went straight down the house. Lost all of our sheep literally a week before we were to start lambing. And I was really in a bad place. I happened to notice this farm state of mind piece of paper. And I picked up my cell phone and I made a phone call and that was the best phone call in my life. I'm glad that I'm still here, so don't do something permanent over a temporary situation.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Agri-Pulse Newsmakers. The Senate will be in session next week, and the House returns to Washington on March 16th. Plus, mark your calendars and register for the Agri-Pulse Ag and Food Policy Summit on March 23rd in Washington and streaming virtually. For Agri-Pulse, I'm Lydia Johnson. Thanks for watching.
Newsmakers is a production of Agri-Pulse Communications. You can also find our new content on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow Agri-Pulse and our correspondents on social media to get breaking news and more. For agriculture, trade, food, environment, and regulatory news, your source is agripulse.com.